Okay, guys, we're going to check our starter, and this is day 4. And I'm taking it out, and I ended up putting it in the oven with just the light on. That puts it just the right temperature in there because it was just a little bit cool here in the house, and I felt like it wasn't doing real good as cool as the house was, so I stuck it in there. And when you turn the light on the oven, it's just the right, look at that. It looks real good. Anyways, the oven stays just about the right temperature with just the light on in there. Look how bubbly. It's active. You can see it bubbling. So we're doing good. Now remember that when I'm showing y'all this, and I'm going to stir it, that the video don't come out till the next day. But Monday's going to be my 6th day, and that's when I'm going to feed it, and that's when I'm going to bake with it. But the video won't come out till Tuesday. So now, if y'all look at your starter and it looks like it's not doing well, just go ahead and feed it. Even if it's not the 6th day, go ahead and feed it if you feel like it's trying to not doing very good. So anyways, let's get on to making our fried pies. You know, there's hardly anything that I like better than a good fried pie. And here in the hills of Arkansas, we're known for our pies up here. Arkansas, all over, is known for some really good pie making. But fried pies is one of my favorites. And just any kind, it don't matter if it's chocolate, apple, peach, apricot. I've got a good recipe for a coconut fried pie. Just cherry, just whatever, you name it. They're so good. And I think it's because they're just so easy to eat too. You just pick it up and just cram it in your mouth and it's so good. But anyways, we're going to be making some apple fried pies today. Now I've done a video on fried pies already, but that's been a while back. And I was going to make fried pies today. So I thought I'll just turn the camera on and bring y'all with me. Now today's going to be a little bit different because I'm going to be using self-rising flour in my crust. I usually just use all-purpose, but this time I'm going to be doing a little bit different. Not much. I'm going to be using self-rising flour. I'm going to be using some fresh lard, which usually if we have a hog killed, we'll keep, the fat from it and we'll render it down for our own lard. But I've got a bunch of it still in my refrigerator in jars just like this, because this is how I do it. After I render it down, I put it in just whatever jars I've got left, whether it's quart or just whatever size. And I put a lid on it and I put it in the refrigerator, and that's where it stays. Now, a lot of people can their lard. I've never done that, but if I had to, I sure would. But it stays really good. The bottom of my refrigerator is for my lard, and that's where I keep it from going rancid. But you can use Crisco, any kind of shortening you've got. So it's 3/4 cup of Crisco or lard, which I'm using. 4 tablespoons of butter. 4 cups of self-rising flour, and I've got 1.5 cups of ice cold water right here. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make our filling. Now, I've had some people ask me, Miss Lori, do some videos on some of the stuff that you can a lot, and show us how you use it. Well, I don't think I've had a video. If I do, I can't remember, of using my canned apples. I have a video showing y'all how I prefer to can my apples. And you can do pears this way too. But I can tell you the way that I do this, and I've drained the juice off of it. But when you take one out of the jar, and I've had a lot of people do it this way, and they come back and tell me that they really prefer it. But when you taste of the apple, it still has a little bit of crunch to it. The apples are already really sweet enough just to put in your fried pies. You really wouldn't have to add any sugar to it. But if you're not, I'm just saying that's the way, because there's already sugar in here because of the way that I canned them up. And I'll leave that link down below to show y'all, if you've not watched it before, how I can my apples. But if you're just using fresh apples, you might want to put a little bit of sugar in them. And you're going to cook them down on top of your stove. Now, this recipe for fried apple pies calls for 4 6-ounce bags of dried apples. So, that's usually the way a lot of people make their fried pies. Now, that's the way I make my apricot fried pies, is with dried apricots. So, if you were using the 4 6-ounce bags of dried apples, you're going to want about 2 cups of sugar. When you put them in a pot, put them on the stove and cook them down. Let's see. And you just want to put enough water over them, of course, too. You know, just over your dried apples. Just enough to cover them with your 2 cups of sugar, and just cook them down. So that would be one way. But I'm using my jarred apples. You can use store-bought canned apple pie filling, whichever you prefer. Or if you want to use fresh apples, just cut them up and make you a little bit of filling with sugar and cinnamon. Just cook them down a little bit. But these have already been pressure canned, so they're good and tender. So the only thing that I've got to do is just dump them in my bowl right here. And I'm not going to add much sugar, because like I said, the way that I can these, they sit in a sugar brine for so many hours before I canned them. So they're good and sweet. But I'm still just going to add probably just a couple tablespoons maybe. Not much. And you can use, if you can't use sugar, you can use whatever sugar substitute that you need to use. You can still do that with your fried pies. And I'm just going to put a little bit of cinnamon in here. However much cinnamon you like. That might have been maybe a teaspoon. Now I'm just going to take my fork, because these apples are so tender, and I'm not going to have to cook these down. But if I was using dried apples or fresh apples, I would have to cook them down. So I'm just going to break these up a little bit, so they'll be a good size to put in my fried pies. And I can tell you, when I learned this method of putting apples and pears up, I'll never go back to making pie filling. And I'll tell you why. Because doing your apples that way, you can use them in so many different ways. And they stay, like I said, they stay crisper. They're not all soggy and just, you know. And I like a little crisp to my apples. So I will leave that link below, like I said. So if you want to watch how I do my apples, like I said, you can do pears that way, and they're wonderful. But it seems like anytime I get pears, Mr. Brown wants pear butter. He eats, I'll tell you, he eats so much of that stuff, he just loves it. And the pear butter goes with not just a hot biscuit and butter, but you can put it on a cake in between layers. You can put it on top of a pancake. You can put it on top of ice cream. There's just so many things you can do with apple and pear butter. So you just want to kind of break your apples down enough. And like I said, if you're not doing it this way, but you're doing it with dried or fresh, you need to cook them down a little bit. I just don't want big old slices in my fried pie. Now this is mainly what I'm going to be making is apple fried pies. But I also have some cherries that I canned up. I think this was 2 years ago. Yeah. So I'm going to be putting some cherries. They had cherries on sale, and I'm thinking it was even Walmart that had them on sale. And I grabbed up a bunch of them and canned them up for cherry pie filling, because I love cherry pie. So now we got the filling done, we're going to get started on our crust. What I've got in my bowl is I've got 4 cups of self-rising flour and 3/4 cup of lard or shortening. And anytime lard has been out a while, it gets pretty loose, but the crust will still be fine. And I'm going to put in 4 tablespoons of butter. Now you can either use a fork and work this in, or a pastry blender, or whatever you've got. I'll tell you what I've got. I've got my fingers, and that's what I'm going to use to blend all this up. Because I can feel and I can tell when it's all coming together. I don't know, there's so many people with so many different fried pie recipes, from the dough to the filling, and I can tell you, I don't think I've ever ate a bad fried pie, so, you know, they're all good. And you can also use this crust recipe for a savory fried pie. I know I've mentioned this before, but my grandma used to make what she called Paul Bunyan burgers, and she would make pie crust, and she would cook up hamburger meat with onions, and she would put that in her crust with a little bit of cheese, and she would fry that up just like you would a fried pie. Now, why it was called Paul Bunyan burgers, I couldn't tell you that. Maybe that's something Grandma made up. I don't know. But I know Mr. Brown liked them. I remember him coming to see me when we was dating. A couple of times she had them made, and he'd never had them before. He really bragged on them, how he liked them. Okay. So that's mixed up really good already. Now, I've got 1.5 cups of cold ice water. Now, I'm not going to pour it all in there at once. I'll make me a well. And to make sure that my water stays cold, I always put a couple ice cubes in it. So I'm just going to start pouring that in there. Now, if you got a pastry fork or whatever, you don't have to use your hands. I'm just going to mix that up together. And this makes quite a few fried pies. Now, it also depends on how big you make your pies. So, my kids' favorite fried pie is chocolate, of course. And I always make the old-fashioned chocolate pies with all it is cocoa powder, butter, and powdered sugar. And you just make a paste out of it. And I think that's probably the recipe I made last time on a video. Maybe it was chocolate fried pies. I'm pretty sure it was. I tell you, I've slept since then. So much going on, you can't remember half of what you've done. Mr. Brown, you know, even though he is doing better since he come down with COVID, he still has a lot of joint pain from it. But one of the things that he has said that's really bothering him is he's forgetting a lot since he's had COVID. Now, you know, we all know as we get older, our memory's not good, but he thinks that it's gotten worse since he's been sick. And I think it's starting to worry him as much as he's forgetting. So, but he's doing okay. Okay, our dough's coming together. I don't want to mess with it too much, but I do want it to come together. When all your pieces start coming together and making a ball, so once I get all this together, I'm going to let it sit. I'm going to cover it up and just let it sit for a minute and settle down. I always do that with any crust that I'm making. So, I'm going to quit messing with it. Cover it up. And we'll be back and we'll start making our pies. So our dough set for about 5 minutes, and I come back and I start pinching off little dough balls, maybe just a little bit bigger than ping pong size balls. Can't talk there. Maybe there's some of them probably the size of golf balls, I don't know. Just make them any size you want. That's what I say. And we pretty much got them done here. Small one, I'll add this too. Now, also, what I'm going to be doing different is how, I usually roll these out, just like you always do. But I seen this, and I started doing it. Because, making fried pies is very time consuming. But I tell you, if you can find different ways that'll help you out and make it a little bit faster for you, why not? So I got my tortilla press here. And if you don't have one of these, I've had this thing for 20 years, probably 20 years plus. I had those back when the kids were young because we made homemade tortillas all the time. But I'll leave a link down below if y'all would like to check one out. They've got different kinds. And you can even make a homemade one. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my little dough ball and I'm going to put it, I've got a Ziploc bag here that I've cut the sides, down the side. Then I cut the tops off. And that's going to keep it from sticking. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do them just like a tortilla. And I'm just going to press this down. Now, you do want your crust pretty thin. So there you have it, about that fast. Now, you can do it this way, the old-fashioned way, like we've always done it. Put your filling in, and then take your fork and crimp it and all that. But I want to show y'all, I purchased these a long time ago, and they're in my Amazon store. And these are little molds for pies, and I absolutely love these things. They come in different sizes. Here's a different one right here that's got little handles on it. It's a big one. This is really good for making meat pies, this bigger one right here. They have even a square one for making a square pies. I love making like homemade Pop-Tarts for the kids with those. And then here's even a smaller size right here. So it's just whatever you got time for, whatever you want to do. But I do love these right here. And this one may not be big enough. I may have to do the smaller one. So all you'd have to do is put that right there. And then put your little water around that. And put your filling in, which is what we're fixing to do. So we're going to start making our pies. And what I do after I make my pies, I stick them in the refrigerator for just a little bit, and I chill them before I fry them. Okay, I've got most of my pies made. I wanted to save a couple. This one right here, all you got to do is just take your ball and kind of roll it in flour and then stick it right here. Now, like I said, I can tell you, I've made plenty of fried pies by rolling them out and crimping them with a fork, a bunch of them. And when I figured out, when I seen somebody doing it this way, I mean, it just changed everything, because most of the time when I'm making fried pies, I'm making them for a lot of people. And this just cut my time in half. So, if you find an easier way of doing something and it still tastes as good, go for it. So, and then if you just want to do a smaller size, do the same thing. Just going to put it right here, fold it over, smash it down like you're making a tortilla. My kids, when they were young, they loved helping to do this. They loved making homemade tortillas. It was fun to them. So, but when you're using these crimpers like this, you need to make sure that your dough kind of hangs over the edge, or it won't crimp very well. So, you can make them on either size that you want. I personally like the smaller size for the grandkids, and then for the bigger kids, the bigger size. Now you just take a little water. I just go around the edge like this. I've already used up all my apple filling. So now we're going to make a couple of cherry. Now the one thing you want to make sure is you don't want hardly any liquid in your fried pie. So I've had to be careful with my cherries here and kind of drain them off because they're already pretty juicy. Really good, fresh cherries. So I'm going to try to get as much of that juice off as I can. So there we got, our cherry fried pies. I've got my water around the edges. I'm going to crimp it. And you can see how the dough goes over the edge. You're just going to take it and get that dough off just like that. You're going to open it up and there's your pie. And it was about that fast and that easy. I'll do it on this one. I may have too much in that little bitty dude. But yes, it takes about half the time to get these fried pies made. And I hardly ever have a whole day to spend on anything. So there we go. Different sizes. So I've got them all laid up over here on my sheet pans down there. And while I'm cleaning all this mess up, I'm going to put these in the refrigerator. Just let them chill just a little bit before I deep fry them. Well, the fried pies are done. And you don't want no icing on these because the crust tastes so good. And I love the little bitty ones for the grandkids. I think they're really going to like them. I hope y'all like this video. We'll see y'all in a couple of days. God bless everybody.
Oh, come on.